All right, we're going to get started on manage and maintain that server infrastructure, which is going to be our objective 1. We're going to talk about design an administrative model, design a monitoring strategy, and plan and implement that automated remediation. So let's jump right into 1.1, design an administrative model. So when we're designing that administrative model, we need to talk about some things, like some design considerations. We're going to talk about our users and our roles. We're going to talk a lot about the users and roles because it's very important you know the why of what role you're going to use when you're trying to perform some type of action, when you're going through your VMM setups or your delegations and all these processes we're going to talk about throughout this whole video series. We're also going to talk about the delegation design for administrative structure for System Center 2012. We're going to talk about the self-service portals using System Center Service Manager, and then finally some delegation rights for our private cloud. We're going to talk more about the App Center and the System Center Virtual Machine Manager. Some of those design considerations, like our users and roles. We want to create user roles in the VMM, that Virtual Machine Manager, that to help us define the object that users can manage. So what permissions are they going to have? What rights are they going to have? What operations can they perform? So there's quite a few roles we need to talk about. Again, so you know the why of what role you want to use or what role you want to delegate permissions to a user so they can perform those operations. So some different roles we're going to talk about is like administrator, the fabric administrator, which could also be called the delegated administrator, the read-only administrator, a tenant administrator, and then finally that application administrator or that self-service user, which when we get into the self-service, we're going to talk about a lot because that's the role we're going to assign those people out there in the world, those self-service roles, so they can actually get in and generate some of those self-service requests and do some things. So those administrators, those are the members of the administrative role, can perform all administrative actions, just like any other administrator where we have a domain admin or a local admin on our system, right? They got those God rights. They can do pretty much anything they want to. So they can perform actions on all the objects that VMM manages. They can add standalone Zen server hosts, Zen server clusters, pools. They can add all that to our VMM management. They can also add the WSUS, or that Windows Server Update Services, to VMM. That way we can enable the updates to our VMM fabric through VMM, which is pretty nice. And when we get to the virtualization section, we're going to talk more about updating our virtual machine manager as well. We also have that delegated administrator, or that fabric administrator. They can do all administrative tasks with inside their host group, what they've been assigned, their clouds, their library servers. They have control over their stuff. They can't add a Zen server and or the WSUS server, so they don't have quite as many rights as a regular administrator, but they have all the rights they need to perform their actions in their little area, in their cloud. They can't modify the VMM settings and cannot add or remove members from that administrative role as well. So you can see they don't have full rights like an administrator, but they control their own little area. And then we have a read-only administrator. They can view the properties, the status, the job status of objects within their assigned groups, their clouds, but they can't modify the objects. So one more step down. So they can look at stuff in their area, but they can't change anything. So they're still kind of administrators. They can see everything. They just can't modify anything. They can view the run as accounts that administrators or delegated administrators have specified for that read-only administrator user role as well. And then we have a tenant administrator. They can manage the self-service users and those VM networks. So they kind of tend to things that help us out as full as administrators we need them to do. They don't have full administrative rights. They can't modify everything in the VMM, but they can take care of the self-service users and those VM networks, which we know that we tie those VM networks to our physical networks. They can create, deploy, and manage their own virtual machines, which is pretty cool. And services by using that VMM console or a web portal, which we're going to talk about like App Center or App Controller. They can also specify which tasks the self-service users can perform on their virtual machines and those services, and they can place quotas on those computing resources and those virtual machines. So they have a pretty important job here. Again, not full administrative rights, not necessarily delegated rights for their own cloud, but they can take care of things inside our VMM that are going to help us where they don't have to be full administrators, but they have some administrative rights where they can help other system admins. And then finally, we have those application administrators. They can create and deploy and manage their own virtual machines and services by using that web portal or that VMM console. So that's all they can do. They can't modify the networks like the tenant, but they can create their own VMs and move forward with whatever services they're wanting to put on those VMs. So in this segment, we covered the different roles for our design consideration. So coming up, we're going to wrap up Objective 1.1. We're going to talk about the run as accounts, some more delegation, and the App Center.